What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Bituation Room show, podcast, live situation thing. Notes from the sunken place. That is where we are. Once upon a time, I used to work on a magazine that had a slogan, Notes from the Global Intifada, which I think is a perfectly fine slogan. Now it's Notes from the Sunken Place. And we're doing things differently. Welcome, one and all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for pressing play. If you're listening in the future, doing your dishes, taking your little walk, going on a run. What? Thank you so much for people who are joining live. Please chime in, send in your super chats, your comments, your love. We have a great show today. Sam Seder of the Majority Report is back. It's been a while. We're going to be talking about SNAP benefits expiring. We're going to be talking about farmers hurting deeply and the triangulation of a trade war between China, Argentina, and whomever else. There's a lot to get into. We're also going to be bitching about a few things. And then later on, Chris Robbins of Hell Gate, which is a worker-run blog that covers New York City politics. He's joining us. He's been covering the Zohran Mamdani election. We are 1 week away from everyone ironically, everyone I know wanting to move back into New York City. So clearly there's something must be done about the housing bubble of people who are priced out or just iced out spiritually from New York City, wanting to move back there, myself included. We're going to talk about Zohran and these final days. Early voting, obviously, still underway. I can't remember if New York closes it for some dumb reason, but anyway, go to the polls, vote your little hearts out. And remember, guys, we do deep dives. I have a new episode dropping later this week. Free. It is free. But you get early access if you're a patron or a member on YouTube. So patreon.com/bituationroom. Go to watch that early and get some behind the scenes thoughts from me. I'll be doing that every single episode. Also, we're going to have an AMA next Friday, so patrons get exclusive access to that. That is only for y'all. And I realize times are tight, and so I'm trying to give more. And, as I scaled back with some of the live streams, scale up with some of that patron only content. So thank you. Also, ad-free content as well. No pre-rolls or none of that crap. And if you're listening as a podcast, it is free. You don't have to be a patron to do this. Give the podcast 5 stars on iTunes, or I guess if you're still using Spotify. Final announcement before we get into it. I'll be live on Saturday, November 1st at the Ice House in Pasadena with Eddie Pepitone, Matt Viola, Eliza Skinner, Vanessa Gonzalez, and Matt Lieb. It's going to be such a good night, and hopefully the Dodgers will wrap it up by Saturday, for the love of God. And with that, let me bring him in for the show. He is the host of the Majority Report. Please welcome Sam Seder. Hello.
Hi. How are you?
I'm okay. I didn't stay up to watch the end of the Dodgers Blue Jays game. So
it was like 5 a.m. here, I think, when it ended.
It was 2 games. Yes, it was.
It was ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
All I can say is, let's go Patriots.
Yes, absolutely. Or
I'm done with baseball season. When the Sox lost, I was done.
You know what I realized about baseball? I love baseball, but you have to actually pay attention. Otherwise, I'm like, man.
Yeah.
And you can't pay attention to baseball when you have like a 3-year-old running around.
I understand that dynamic.
You're like, I miss Ohtani. All right. Sam Seder, welcome back. We got a lot of stuff to get into, but I am curious about what you're bitching about this Halloween week.
What am I not bitching about this Halloween week? I mean, this is like deciding on one thing is pretty difficult right now, because the ICE attacks drive me, just make me so angry I can't even speak. And the fact that we're bombing people in boats, I find to be highly problematic, to say the least. But I have to say, the thing that really has got under my skin is the way that the disingenuousness of the attacks on Graham Platner up in Maine, who was running against Janet Mills
Right.
for the Democratic nomination for Senate. And I, I have no love of Nazi tattoos.
It's good to get out of the way.
But for me, like, the issue with the tattoo is it's a piece of evidence that the guy holds some problematic ideologies. And if you look, and now at least the 10 years of Reddit archives have been combed through by Jacobin, got a hold of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And his ideology is anything but Nazi or fascist. In fact, he's I don't know if he would call himself anti-fascist, but I think he has called himself anti-fascist. Actually, I don't know if he would say he's Antifa, but and so
yeah, there are a lot of people on the left of center, but not just Democrats. Progressives seem to have sort of said this is, disqualifying his. Obviously, he has a Nazi tattoo that he says he just got picked out drunkenly in like Malta. I don't know where he was.
Croatia, I think it was.
Croatia. Yeah, and he, whatever. Now he's gotten it covered up. He also apologized for some misogyny in his Reddit posts, but. Yeah, so that's just sort of to bring everyone up to speed. There are not a lot of people who are super sticking their necks out for him. I think you're right. I think you and Emma have definitely, and I think it's important. Look, I've known a lot of veterans from the anti-war movement, during the anti-Iraq war movement, who became politicized through the military and what they were asked to do and the wars for oil they were asked to fight, and came back and are completely different. And I'm sure all of their views were I wouldn't co-sign, but they joined a movement, found camaraderie. I think the one thing Platner has that I think is really remarkable is his ability to apologize in a way that is very sincere. I mean, we're talking these 5-minute videos that have no jump cuts, nothing scripted. It's all very honest. Here's what I will say. I don't have enough. I think Janet Mills, the biggest thing against her is that she's old, and she probably, I mean, just to say, my thing is, I feel as though when it comes to the Senate, and we've seen this with a few senators like Fetterman and Sinema, who were not really time tested. I mean, Sinema was elected to Congress, right? So she was a congressperson. But, Fetterman is this example that once you get into the Senate, the fucking walls of money close around you and you are easily and deeply corruptible. And I get very scared when someone, it's their first office they've held is senator. And I know Fetterman
was lieutenant governor.
Yes, he was.
Sinema was a congresswoman, and I think before that she was a state rep. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I think that's a problem with anybody. I mean, look, I don't think Mills can win, to be totally honest with you. I mean, I think
against Collins.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, she's been complimenting Collins. As a Maine voter, what do you get with Janet Mills that you don't get with Susan Collins? And so I think he has a better chance of winning. And look,
because he has a message that is actually different. It is actually an oppositional message to the Republican Party.
If you look at what's going on, in fact, I think Alex Seed Waltz, I can't remember his full. He's a reporter who had moved up to Maine about 3 or 4 years ago, I guess, and he's been sending dispatches of the incredible excitement around Platner. I think he is generating a level of enthusiasm that we need to beat Susan Collins. We have I think it's been in just the 20 some odd years I've been following politics, 3 or 4 sort of DNC picked candidates go up against Susan Collins and lose badly.
Yeah.
Despite having funding and whatnot. And look, it's always a risk when you send somebody to the Senate. Are they going to change in some fashion? Without a doubt. But if you dig into what he's been saying in these Reddit chats for 10 years, he talked about he got radicalized by his time in the military, and he had, warm feelings towards the Afghan people, but he saw what we were doing as an imperial power. There's things I don't, I wouldn't necessarily subscribe to that he believes in, like his relationship with guns and whatnot, but it's Maine and it's a different place. And I will also cop to being a little bit biased insofar as he was a fan of the Michael Brooks show. You can find
which does say something. I mean,
well, without a doubt, he was a caller into our show. He was a fan of the Majority Report, and which is not to say that that's indicative of anything beyond what I think like his ideology, or what he believes his ideology to be. It's possible he gets to the Senate like any. If
he was calling into the Door show, we'd all be a little bit more alarmed. I mean,
listen, the one piece of evidence about this guy's ideology is his tattoo. But I don't have a problem with Pete Hegseth exclusively because he has a Christian nationalist tattoo. It's because all of his rhetoric and behavior and actions and decisions have been consistent with that.
Yeah.
And Platner, I think there's the baseline for me is if Joe Manchin could win that seat.
Yeah.
I would support Joe Manchin. If I had a crystal ball and somebody said the only person who can win that seat is Joe Manchin and he's going to win it as a Democrat, I would say, fine. But I think with Platner, not only do I think he has a substantially better chance than Mills to win against Collins because he represents something fundamentally different than her. I think there's a big upside there. It could be a downside, but if he's got a D behind his name, and it means that hopefully whoever replaces Chuck Schumer will be the Senate Majority Leader, that's a huge deal. I mean, we're in a real crisis right now. And increasingly, I'm concerned about the possibility of elections in 2028, the possibility of elections in 2026, with the gerrymandering. The Democrats need to control at least one House of Congress because they need to rein in, even if it's just an inconvenience and a harassment for ICE having to come into to Congress and testify. This is important.
Absolutely. That's huge. I mean, that would be huge. No, I definitely see your point. I guess the discourse I found very, very upsetting on both sides. And I've kind of wanted to duck under it, which I do time to time on certain things. I'm like, I don't need to weigh in on this.
Right.
But I also think, there's a long campaign here. I mean, it's not in a week. I don't think that it's a wrap for his campaign at all. I think it's unfortunate, obviously, that he's got a effing Nazi tattoo. But I also, the idea of I was, in Croatia, or I'm in the military and I drunkenly got a tattoo. That's 75% of tattoos are people who do it when they're drunk with their boys or whatever. I am partial to believing that this person didn't know that this was a Nazi tattoo.
I got to think that he didn't know at that time. I suspect that at one point he found out about it, but I also think that from reading in those archives, when he was talking about other tattoos that other guys in the military had, the bolts. I mean, first of all, I didn't know what the Totenkopf was. I had no idea what it was. I'm not in that world really. But he was talking about a lot of military personnel have like bolts, which, I guess were the, I don't know if it was
SS.
the SS. And that it means something different in that culture, some machismo badass thing. And I suspect at one point he's like, he may have found out about it, but he's like, it's not like I've got it on my face or my forehead. It's, it's on my chest. The only, I guess the one time he took off his shirt was to dance at his brother and sister-in-law's wedding, and his sister-in-law is Jewish. So I don't think he seemed terribly concerned about it in that instance. And
well, it was anti-Semitic to dance half naked for her. I think that's what we've proven.
I
That's what
certainly
the
think
Oppo research.
If that had happened at my wedding, I think my grandmother would have had a problem with it.
Look, people have this is a random story. A very good friend, comrade of mine, long time, knew him for years. We were like organizing side by side. We go to I think we were at the Highlander Institute together, and we go jump in the lake, and he takes off his shirt, and he has this entire back tattoo of a naked woman emerging from the water. And it was like, excuse me? I was like, Mark?
No, you got on your
Mark,
back.
if you're
Maybe
listening,
you don't know what it is.
He didn't know that was like a butt crack. But no, it was just like, you know what? It's expensive to cover up tattoos. Anyway, I understand the upsetness, but I feel like you're right making the argument of who's going to be Republican Susan Collins, who's going to offer something different, something that actually can speak to the economic needs of Mainers and Americans. It's going to be Platner over someone like Mills. And I think just on a who could actually get over the finish line, I agree with you. I just haven't felt a need to weigh in strongly one way or the other.
Well, I think what's going on right now is this big internecine fight within the Democratic Party. And, right. But I think Platner, I think some of the Platner mania up in Maine is a function of Mamdani. And I think that opens up the space for what people think is possible in the context of these elections. And I think the fear amongst a lot of the more conservative elements in the Democratic Party is that Platner is going to provide some type of roadmap. I mean, look, they just released a document the other day that suggested that there's a conflation of economic, leftism as defined by economic policies and sort of what people, wokeism as being leftist as opposed to liberal. But the woke stuff, I don't think in any way the Democratic Party should retreat from that stuff as a party. But the sequencing is you start with a candidate who has a leftist economic vision that may include things like single payer healthcare, that may include a free college option, maybe nationalizing the power grid or something to that effect, and then generally, depending on where it is, there may be some latitude on things like guns or the way they articulate immigration. But, the Democratic Party doesn't even have a policy on immigration as far as I can tell at this point. So it's sort of hard to say that one's deviating from it.
Well, this is what's problematic. It's like, I would take them more seriously getting upset about the Nazi tattoo if you actually had a plan to fight real Nazis who are currently in power now.
Yeah.
And I also feel like, the other thing that Zohran does is also, we see centrists, obviously a lot of right wingers, attack him for being Muslim. And so again, I do feel, and I feel like the left and progressives have embraced him. Not primarily because he is a person of color where, and I'm going to talk about this later with Chris, but you see his reaction to things like Islamophobia is very different than the way that, let's say, Kamala Harris reacted to attacks on her being Black or a woman. Kamala Harris ran away from her identity. She downplayed it time and time again because the Democratic Party constantly says, especially when they lose, Nancy Pelosi told Hillary Clinton, stop talking about being a woman. We went too woke. The Ezra Kleins of the world tell us to, get rid of our identities. And then the identity politics come out in full when, Bernie Sanders or Graham Platner like runs, and it's like, oh, you're just anti, you just hate, you're just supporting this white guy. Like, they want to have it both ways, but they are so deeply unserious about supporting racial justice and like fighting Islamophobia, throwing down with Arab Americans, being in solidarity with Muslims or people or immigrants, that it's like, in the year 2025, a lot of this sort of like pearl clutching doesn't really work anymore.
Right.
Anyway, I know there's some people who say like that because he was in the military, because he was in Blackwater. I'm seeing some comments. Again,
well, let me just say the thing about the Blackwater. He served as a contracted security for the ambassador.
Yeah.
He never fought in combat as a mercenary. He, when he got out of the military, like a lot of vets had, didn't feel like he had any type of skill sets. And he went and he served as an ambassador, as security for the ambassador. And so it's a little bit different than, being a contractor fighting in Fallujah.
Yeah. I mean, look, I know people who were in Fallujah or were in Iraq, and they have now joined movements to stop war.
Absolutely.
They are a huge portion of our allies, and, that we need. Anyway, what I'm pitching about is what happens when a senator loses all touch with voters, people, reality, and again, just takes the paycheck time and time again. I have done a deep dive investigation of where Kyrsten Sinema has been since her time in office, and how she's basically gotten away with like financial fraud and crimes while in office, using campaign funds for expensive hotels while she was doing marathon races and wine tasting, which is her favorite thing.
Wasn't she an intern at a winery or something while she was a senator?
Yeah.
That seems like you've got a lot of time on your hands.
They did pay her, but it was only like $6,000. It was during, a COVID, give her a break. But she is now working on the Global Advisory Council of Coinbase, which is, Brian Armstrong's crypto wallet exchange, whatever. Brian Armstrong is the private cities guy, big MAGA supporter. And now she's working to promote AI. She founded herself the AI Infrastructure Coalition, and which is trying to lobby different city governments and councils to allow data centers to be built in them. And we know that the data centers are polluting, and they are loud, and they are awful, and communities are trying to get them out. She wants to get them in. She went to the suburb of Phoenix called Chandler and made them an offer they cannot refuse, in kind of one of the creepiest things I've seen. Now, by the way, she cannot lobby for a specific firm, but she can be an advisor. So that's what she's been. She's like Coinbase advisor, AI advisor.
Tonight, on behalf of Active Infrastructure, I also am the founder and co-chair of a national coalition called the AI Infrastructure Coalition. We are a national coalition formed earlier this year, and work hand in glove with the Trump administration as we prepare for AI American dominance, to prepare against a competing threat from China, but also to ensure that domestically that we are prepared for the AI revolution that is coming. Here, the AI action plan set out by the Trump administration says very clearly that we must continue to proliferate AI and AI data centers throughout the country.
We must continue to proliferate. That Trump wants us to proliferate. Everything about this woman is so deeply enraging to me, from the way that she talks, like so condescending, constantly. Have you ever met anyone who hates their fucking state more than Kyrsten Sinema hates the people of Arizona? Selling them out to Amazon, selling them out to whomever. She's like, anyway, so now it's data centers. There's a little bit more.
So federal preemption is coming. Chandler right now has the opportunity to determine how and when these new innovative AI data centers will be built. When federal preemption comes, we'll no longer have that privilege. They will just occur, and they will occur in the manner in which they want to occur.
God, what a
Wait, wait, wait,
just
wait.
loathsome person.
Federal preemption is coming. And so Chandler is a moment. Basically, this is going, she just said this will happen with or without your consent. But if you get in on the ground floor, maybe you won't be, your children won't be ground into fuel for the centers, or we will spare your waste, your drinking water a little bit, or, we'll clean up after. Like, she's threatening them. She is
100%.
fucking threatening. Okay, so what she's advocating to be built is called the Price Road Innovation Campus. It's a $2.5 billion project by a New York-based developer to build a data center and 5 office buildings there. And federal, what the fuck does that even mean? Did she just make, so they're just going to seize land? They're going to
National Guard will come in and take it and build it. I have no idea. It's creepy.
This is like mega Hunger Games end times vibe of we could do this the easy way or the hard way. And our mandate is to build data centers to destroy your jobs, and you can create an AI girlfriend with 4 boobs.
I like the idea, though, that we have now accepted the concept that the federal government can do industrial planning and has the ability to go into nationalized areas for the national good. I would like to see that happen in different ways, not necessarily data centers, but maybe we can get some of those solar farms back up and some wind farms. And that is I don't want to say there's a silver lining to any of what's going on right now, because it's horrible, but there's an opportunity in the future for very, very progressive politics, because the notion of, government owning 10% of a company so that they can sell and manufacture things, the idea that there can be federal preemption in terms of putting a data center into a town, it's basically saying that there's, all the fears of that would be involved in so-called socialist or industrial planning actions by the federal government. It's on the table now, as far as I'm concerned.
I feel like we just need to, Uncle Sam needs a little glow up or something. I feel, because apparently Americans are fine if one person is getting rich, or like 12 of them, Donald Trump, Mark Andreessen, David Sachs, Peter Thiel, JD, it just, as long as someone's getting rich, you can plunder or seize land, not plunder, but seize land and build these things. But if the American taxpayer, or Uncle Sam broadly, is making money, or, has some sort of national investment, that's disgusting, because that's for the common good. But this is quite truly what's happening. You could see this, right? You see these data centers, and this is a woman who who also lobbies on behalf of, or is an advisor to, a guy who believes in privatized cities. So where does this fucking go from here, right? You start with the data center, then you go into the private city. Now we own your roads and, your stoplights or whatever, I don't know, your schools. We're just going to own everything, and we're going to seize it. And this is going to be our own privatized city. I feel like this is kind of how it begins. Anyway. That's what I'm bitching about. My girl Kirsten. Let's get into a few things, but first, I'm going to leave you on for this ad read, because yesterday I needed dessert, and I was like, we have Halloween candy, and I was like, am I going to do it? Am I going to dip into the Halloween candy? And then I realized I had a box of Sunset Lake CBD chocolates, or fudge to be more specific, and I ate some. It was very good. And then kind of around when it was time to go to bed, I was like, I am tired. I love this. Because usually I will eat something sweet. It wakes me up, the caffeine, the whatever, and I can't sleep. But no, Sunset Lake CBD's fudge gives you that after dinner treat, and then also puts you in the mood to go night night. And it is National Chocolate Day, so you have to buy it. Each square has 25 milligrams of full spectrum CBD and 1 milligram of, that's why, THC, making them the perfect midday pick-me-up or a tasty substitute for that evening nightcap. In my case, that's what it was. So go to sunsetlakecbd.com, use coupon code FRANTIFA, FRANTIFA, save 20% off your entire order. Again, so many good things. I know Sam's a big fan of
those
the
guys
Goodnight gummies.
are great. I mean, well, yes, I do the Goodnight tincture, the Goodnight oil, and occasionally, like on the weekends, after maybe a big meal, I will sometimes have some of their smokables.
Nice.
And I use their Solve off-label use of their Arnica Sebede Solve on my eczema that I occasionally get. Yep, they may be sharing too much, but there it is.
I gotta try that on my kid. Yes. Yeah. sunsetlakecbd.com. Holler at it. And now let's get into it. So many things happened this week. Way too many things to include. This is the week where. Okay, so we've known for a long time that the right has been after SNAP benefits. They hate poor people. They hate poor people eating. They hate poor people eating food that they don't designate they should eat. They hate poor people eating like them. So eating what everyone eats, potato chips, like white bread, whatever. Deep classism involved here, and SNAP has already been cut, we know, by $186 billion because of the big fugly bill. And now the government shutdown has hastened it because on November 1st, food benefits are going away. They are lapsing for 42 million Americans. Donald Trump could use discretionary funds to basically help them.
There's a specific emergency contingency fund of $5 billion that could be deployed. And the USDA had it on their website as of like 3 or 4 days ago. And then at one point, I think the Republicans realized, okay, they're sort of losing this shutdown battle, and they need to apply pressure on the Democrats. The Republicans, like you say, don't care about people eating. And so they decide to sort of pretend like they legally can't do this, which is rich, because one of the reasons why the Democrats are shutting down the government is that the Trump has both illegally impounded funds that were for other things and illegally appropriated funds that were not appropriated by Congress. Yep. So the idea that Trump is constrained by laws is hilarious in and of itself, but we know that they're not. Even Susan Collins, who I think is afraid of Graham Platner, came out and said she's spoken to her lawyers and they think this is a misreading that the Trump administration is doing. So
never been a more lost person. I mean, Schumer's up there, but Susan Collins, the ability to suspend disbelief on how evil your fucking party is. Anyway, yes, and to Sam's point, this is what Mike Johnson is saying about using those discretionary funds.
I got a summary of the whole legal analysis, and it certainly looks legitimate to me. The contingency funds are not legally available to cover the benefits right now. The reason is because it's a finite source of funds. It was appropriated by Congress, and if they transfer funds from these other sources, it pulls it away immediately from school meals and infant formula. So it's a trade-off.
It's a total lie. It's a total lie. I mean, he's just lying. I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, you know that he's lying because he's like, I'm getting this from the lawyers. It's not me. It's somebody's. I went back and I spoke to my manager. I just can't do anything better for you. I'm sorry. You're getting the best price there is.
We're what, like 30 or 20, I guess, are we exactly 28 days into this government shutdown? Was there whispers today that maybe the federal unions wanted to come back to work?
I think yesterday the AFGE, which is the biggest public employees union, was saying they want an end to this shutdown. That puts pressure on Democrats. I suspect that is the leadership of the union feeling the heat because they've got now hundreds of thousands of federal workers who are they've just missed their first paycheck. And, it's not like these folks are making so much money that they can go weeks or months without or months or weeks without a paycheck. And so it's a problem. I mean, there's a real a stalemate here. But
yeah, I just want to say, like, looking at some of the stats on like what it is that Democrats are fighting for. And I think I don't believe that government shutdown should even be a site of struggle and strategy, but this is how our stupid ass government is funded. But like the premiums of the ACA, and I'm someone who buys on the marketplace, it will be insane, will be absolutely crushing. So the holdout over healthcare is very important. And, as of a week ago, Democrats were also still encouraging their leaders to hold the line.
Yeah. I think they still are. And I want to there's actually, it's not just the extension of the ACA subsidies, which is huge. And we are, 2 days away, 3 days away from open enrollment. And all through this past week and going into the next week, people are going to realize like how much their insurance is going to go up. And the insurance is going to go up, not just because of the lack of subsidies, but it's also going to go up because people are going to drop off the rolls and the risk pools get smaller. And so everybody's insurance goes up. But the really fundamental thing is Trump has been impounding funds. Mm-hmm. And if the Democrats do not have any type of agreement that Trump can't do this, what is the point of agreeing to anything? Yep. The budget doesn't mean anything. And so, I mean, I think Democratic messaging on this has seems to have in some ways fallen off a cliff. I don't know where Chuck Schumer has gone. Hakeem Jeffries is laying low because he, I don't know, he's upset because he had to endorse the Democratic nominee for mayor, 24 hours in advance of voting.
No, they really have been not out front on this. I mean, I wanted to play this from Lloyd Doggett of Texas. Even he is like, look, use the funds, help people get their SNAP benefits.
Trump could easily take immediate action to prevent this from happening by simply using his contingency funding and transfer authority. He could move as quickly as he did to give Argentina a $40 billion bailout. How about just putting Americans first?
I mean, that $40 billion Argentinian bailout is just sitting out there like a gift.
Yep.
The fact that it happened now, I mean, it was obviously tied to Milei's, the midterm elections there in Argentina, but the Democrats have not this should be everywhere. There should be, they should be rolling out ads in, 12 states across the country about this stuff.
Yep.
You shouldn't be able to watch the Dodgers game without seeing this stuff.
Well, Canada knows what's up. I mean, sticking with SNAP, people are going to starve. I remember one of the most chilling stories from when there was an increase in SNAP benefits that I read. It was like some, 60-year-old woman in like New Mexico or something who said that because of the increase in SNAP benefits to something like, I think she normally got like $38 a month and it was like $100. Her nails grew back because she ate vegetables. I mean, this kind of shit. And this is the thing also, it's really important to know. I've been on panels with like Maha, and so have you. They are so convinced that, and all of these, there's so many new SNAP restrictions. You can't buy junk food or so-called junk food when there is no evidence that poorer people buy junk food at higher rates. Number one, if there is a correlation, it's because it's like It's
Food
cheaper.
deserts, and
They're
it's cheaper.
and they're
Yes.
food deserts. But they've wanted this for so long. So there's already been a cutback on SNAP that's going to keep on rolling. But in the meantime, federal workers, I know TSA agents, people who have not been paid are relying on food banks and sort of communities. Here are some of those food banks speaking about what they're going through.
Trying to use up my tax.
How long is this sustainable?
Wow. It's not. It won't be from the first day. For every meal that a food bank provides, the SNAP program provides 9. There's no way we can meet that gap. There's no way we can replace every single one of those meals. It is not sustainable for food banks to fill this gap. We were not built to do this. We will stand out there and we will do our very best.
Okay, look, I'm not someone who works with the hungry on the day to day, but like you can see the emotion in her eyes as someone who does. She's from the food depot. And I think that is actually, New Mexico, Jill Dixon. And I thought this was kind of astute, Annette Hacker in Iowa, also at another food bank, basically like, look, this is what's going to happen in the future because SNAP will be cut.
The gap that lack of SNAP benefits will create is immense to fill. What we're seeing is just a foreshadowing of what's ahead with more and more cuts to SNAP in the next couple of years. The charitable food system cannot fill this gap, no matter how hard we try.
There you go.
We should say Iowa is like in a recession at this point. Farmers have been just devastated by what's been going on with the tariffs and the trade wars that Trump has been implementing. And just a reminder on SNAP, something like 40% of SNAP recipients are children. I think another 20% are senior citizens. The vast majority of the remaining 40% work. So it's literally supplemental to get them over the hump. And the amounts of money that we're talking about are minimal. But, this has been going on for a long time with the Republican Party. I just want to make, this point whenever you can. Donald Trump has executed this. Russ Vought has executed this in a way that Republicans in the past didn't feel they could get away with because of just sort of like the structure of our politics at the time. But Paul Ryan, back in the aughts, and all the Republicans, frankly, were creating this sort of notion that you are morally reprehensible if you need food, if you are living in poverty. And this is the culmination of a Republican project that has existed for years and years and years.
That's what drives me absolutely nuts about the Lincoln Project and all the other, like, now, for lack of a better term, anti-Trumpers.
Yeah.
It's like, buddy, you made your entire career, talking about entitlement programs and demonizing the people who relied on them, and trying to find every which way to cut them, whether it's Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, food stamps, WIC, whatever it is. Like, this is your payday. Like, I don't get it.
100%.
But
they want to pretend like Trump is like was dropped out of an alien spaceship. But the fact of the matter is that the day he came down that escalator, the Republican Party was completely built electorally and the way they had constructed their ideology to elevate this guy. The reason why, I remember Paul Ryan back in the day telling fake stories about a child he met at a school in Wisconsin who, desperately wanted a brown bag lunch. And that's why we shouldn't give free lunches at school. He wanted a lunch that came from home. Well, the story ended up being a story that he cribbed from someone in Wisconsin. And that story ended up being a lie. And the whole argument, again, was to create, if you're wealthy, you are morally righteous. So when Donald Trump got on that stage in 2016 with all the other Republican candidates, he's the billionaire. De facto, he wins every argument because he's morally righteous because he's rich.
Absolutely. He's never had to rely on, government funding except for when he bankrupted casinos. And before we fully get into the farmer crisis, because I feel like you and the Majority Report have done an incredible job covering, this massive crisis that has been triggered by Trump's trade war, the 100% tariffs on China that are now possibly being eased. Look, again, must mention, I lived in Argentina for 5 years, and I was a journalist there. It took me so long to wrap my head around what the hell is going on with the Argentine economy. And this, again, is an economy that, starting with the military dictatorship taking out IMF and World Bank loans, has been deeply in debt and is very much reliant on the dollar. So its reserves are in the dollar. Everyone saves in the dollar because there's less inflation. Big purchases are made in the dollar. It is a dollar-based economy, which means it is often fucked. And so the peso gets, skyrockets, and people don't want to save in the peso. They want to save in the dollar. With this $40 billion currency swap, the United States is giving a bunch of liquidity in dollars to Argentina that needs dollars to circulate in its economy in exchange for a peso. And people like Scott Bessent and his friends and rich hedge fund investors who have always not only invested in Argentina and then left with all the money when things went south, but have bought Argentine debt for pennies on the dollar to then argue in court and win. I think his name is Paul Singer, hedge fund manager, win to be repaid, up to 200% of what they originally bought, even though they bought pennies of debt. This is a cycle that happens to the people of Argentina over and over and over again. So what I've been reading is what's going to happen is the U.S. will be left, we will be left, and the IMF and the World Bank, because Argentina took out another massive loan to shore up their economy, which again is being destroyed by a psycho-libertarian who he came off the back of a more of a, Democrat centrist. But before that, it was like a crazy neoliberal named Mauricio Macri, who was in power. So the point is like, once Bessent and the other hedge fund managers are made whole, they get out of Argentina with their money. Guess who's going to have pesos? The American people,
Right.
the American treasury, like the 40 billion, it's going to be us. And we're going to be like slowly paid back, which actually, I mean, as someone who wants to see the people of Argentina not in poverty, could be good for future negotiation should the political situation in both countries change. And there could be some sort of negotiation. But either way, it is a slap in the face. You see people like Marjorie Greene saying things like this.
For example, this $40 billion bailout for Argentina. That's probably one of the grossest things I've ever seen. And I have no idea who is telling our great president, our America First president, that this is a good idea.
Our great president, it's Scott Bessent.
Because it's a punch in the gut to all of our American cattle ranchers, and they are furious, and rightfully so.
So that's enough from her. But I want to just mention that part of this is trying to triangulate and basically cut off trade between Argentina and China, and having the US say, we will be the ones that will buy your beef. And the beef farmers in this country are like, what?
It's not just the beef farmers too, right? Like, because you have like the soybean farmers whose sales have like basically gone from billions of dollars a year to zero.
Yes.
Almost overnight, essentially. And then there are farmers who provide feed for American cattle, which is no longer going to be raised because you got all this Argentinian beef that's going to come in. So it's a double whammy for farmers in this country, on top of like, all the inflationary pressures on the stuff that they're doing, because all of their inputs too, all of their machinery, all of their operations on their farm are all subject to tariffs from other countries because
of reciprocal tariffs.
Yes.
Of the stupid trade war. I mean, here's, this is just a little bit of it, but you hear farmers, and this is not something unique to the United States. Farmers are, often a few months away if there's a drought, if there's, something happens, if there's a stupid trade war, they're going to be insolvent. They're going to declare bankruptcy and possibly commit suicide.
5 of my customers have committed suicide. That's how serious that this is.
Today, Arkansas farmers gathered to share their struggles with staffers from the state's congressional delegation, pleading for Arkansas lawmakers on Capitol Hill and the governor to convince President Trump to provide emergency funding to help them make it to next year.
We have to have ad hoc payments right now to make it through this year.
If there's no emergency funding this year, there will be 1 out of 3 farmers will file bankruptcy.
Their cries for help did not appear to fall on deaf ears.
We're going to take your message. We're going to get it back to D.C. We're going to do everything we can to get you the help you need.
And I think there was earlier in the year a very minor infusion of cash for farmers, but it's getting worse. And again, this whole war on China, it's like, hey, the war on China sounds pretty tough in theory. In practice, it means propping up your libertarian buddy in Argentina and undermining all of your American farmers.
Yeah, this is the classic sort of like Trump scenario where he breaks something, he drops the coffee mug, it shatters, and then he sort of glues it back together with a couple of leaky holes and says, look I'm fixing things. And he just keeps doing that over and over again. I suspect we're going to see some type of bailout for farmers, but everything is frozen right now. But again, he doesn't seem to be terribly constrained by laws or statute or any of that. So we'll see.
I mean, I guess that's my last thought because, you were speaking, is his name Alex Kroll on Alex Kroll's my friend, about Russ Vogt.
And Andy Kroll from ProPublica today. Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is that some of the people in the Trump administration, I mean, you've got Mike Johnson trying to run cover for the Epstein files and not confirm Adelita Grijalva. You've got, someone like Russ Vogt is like, yeah, never open the government. This is great. So it's hard. It is hard to have brinksmanship or strategy with people who want to implode the government and don't believe in government just in and of itself.
I mean, the real pressure is coming on Republican elected officials. Russ Vogt doesn't care, but Republican elected officials, particularly whatever it is, like a dozen plus who are in so-called frontline districts in Congress, they're feeling the pressure.
Yeah.
The Senate races are going to be, there are some winnable Senate races that you wouldn't have anticipated necessarily 2 years ago in this cycle for Democrats because of this stuff. So it is.
So you're agreeing with Chuck Schumer is what I'm hearing. You just sit back and let him go.
You need to message. I mean,
yeah.
Chuck Schumer did not want to have this government shutdown, and he was sort of forced to because the Democrats were saying, like, look, we need to have this fight because the American public, I mean, we had hundreds of thousands of federal workers already furloughed, and their pay was going to run out October at the end of this month anyways. They've been sitting at home being paid not to come in. And so we have the Trump administration illegally firing federal workers anyway. And the fight needs to be made. The American public needs to be aware of what's going on. And so, they could have just passed a continuing resolution. And then these, healthcare premiums would go through the roof. And then Trump would continue to do whatever he's doing. Or at one point, you got to stop running and fight.
Yeah. I mean, you need both. There's no point in everything going to shit if you don't message on actually stopping it.
Exactly.
And fight. Sam Seder of the Majority Report. Everyone listen, watch it. What else can we plug? That's it. Thank you so much for joining me.
It was a real pleasure.
Always a pleasure
talking to you.
All right. Take care. Oh gosh, I just heard screaming from the other podcast in the other room, which is Matt Lieb over there. I was like, what's happening? The Dodgers aren't still playing. You guys, I'm very excited to bring into the Bitchuation Room for the first time, the editor and co-founder at Hell Gate, which is a blog owned and run by journalists covering New York City politics. What about news and is there culture? Is there celeb news? Chris, welcome. Chris Robbins, welcome to the show. You're nodding. You guys do a little like who's stepping out with who? Did Bradley Cooper and whatever the hell?
I will say we did discuss doing a blog post on which of the members of RONI were most likely to vote for Zohran Mamdani. So stay tuned for that blog post down the line. We're not above it. We'll do it.
Why Hell Gate?
Why the name Hell Gate? Okay, so we sat down and we made a list of like the coolest sounding New York City landmarks, and the Hell Gate Bridge, which is located over the Hell Gate in the East River, which is a notoriously treacherous strait of water, just won because it sounds extremely cool, and it works as a metaphor because it's the sturdiest bridge in New York City because it's a rail bridge over its most treacherous waters. So that is what we are.
That's pretty tight. That is pretty tight. I'm trying to think of a weak ass landmark, but I can't come up with a joke fast enough for this. But people sound off in the comments. Let's talk about Zohran Mamdani. We are exactly a week out. We're not going to be doing a show next Tuesday because Tuesdays are awful on election days, and we're like, everything we do is just going to, change in a matter of hours. But we had Zohran on this show, back in the spring before the primary and, or in the beginning of the year, I guess. And, I think everyone was surprised by him clinching a ranked choice primary. I am someone who is dubious of, the strategy to just say, don't rank Cuomo. I was, scared. We've seen ranked choice voting, which I deeply believe in, work against New Yorkers in the election of Eric Adams. And damn it, he won, and he won resoundingly. And I wanted to ask you, since the primary, what has changed on the ground in terms of volunteers, in terms of endorsements? What looks different now? I mean, I'm going to talk about the noise on top, but kind of like on the ground, what gains have you noticed that he has made?
So I think, on the ground, he has 90,000 some volunteers door knocking, canvassing for him, which again, far dwarfs any of the other campaigns, especially Andrew Cuomo's campaign. But I think, endorsement wise, many of the people who endorsed the former governor came over to Mamdani, the major unions, the hotel and gaming union, 32BJ, the city workers union. You're seeing them stand with Mamdani. And then I think, the candidate himself, there was a moment, I think you talked about interviewing him, in the run up to the primary. A lot of obviously his platform is like very serious and is resonant with many New Yorkers, but he was like a jokier, more lighthearted. He was bringing the sort of joy quotient to the primary race. And I think right around the primary time, and certainly afterwards, you could see him sort of like realize like, oh shit, like I won. I must project this sort of stoic, like calm, methodical, thoughtful presence that is demanded of me because I have a very good chance of becoming the next mayor of New York City.
No more rapping in shirtless, aprons.
Yeah, I mean, and he'll still do the occasional silly video, but I think there's much less of that now. And I think he's changed, and obviously he's said that he's going to appoint Eric Adams's police commissioner, Jessica Tisch, or he would like to have her join his administration. And that is obviously, a lot of centrist Democrats and a lot of the city's more well-heeled residents were looking for sort of him to do that as a sort of sign of reassurance to them. So that's another thing that's changing. He's moderating some of his positions. Yeah.
Well, can I ask you about that? Because actually it's maybe the least sexy thing I want to talk about when it comes to Zohran, but it's the one I'm more interested in, is this, he really is able to drill down on the idea of public safety. It's not universal childcare, free buses, city run grocery stores, it's freezing the rent, which are maybe like the top 4, not in that order, but then he also really does talk about public safety and how important it is for, your own economic stability. The economic stability of New Yorkers has everything to do with the safety of New Yorkers. But how is he putting that into practice, or how do you think will he approach, public safety from, I don't know, the way that like Brandon Johnson of Chicago has, actually moving some funds, out of policing? I remember Tiffany Caban years ago, I spoke to her and she's like, look, the data is always there. The data that shows that public, moving money into crisis response teams, which I think Zohran has talked about as well, like that works, but it politically is always so toxic and people are so afraid to actually bite the bullet and do it.
Yeah. So actually, and not to plug our own podcast, but we asked him about Jessica Tisch for our podcast last week on Friday. And we were very pointed about this. We said, look, a lot of the things that you have fought for, criminal justice reform, a lot of the things you want to do, disband the NYPD's sort of protest goon squad, the strategic response group, create a Department of Community Safety, take away the job of assigning mental health professionals to these sort of calls and leaving the police out of it. These are things that Jessica Tisch has, definitely does not support, in some cases worked hard against. How do you square that, with you choosing her? And, he basically, his answer was, look, my positions haven't changed. And anyone who is, working for me as the mayor will have to fall in line behind me. And I mean, is that a satisfying answer to the folks who care deeply about those issues? I don't really know, but I mean, it is the logical answer, which means that he believes that she will execute his policy agenda. And, a big part of that is reforming the NYPD in ways that prior mayors have not either had the will to do, or, they wanted to go the other way.
I mean, I like that answer, and just that, well, I'm the one who calls the shots kind of thing. It's very tough New York answer. But I also feel like a police commissioner being on different footing with a mayor could be the undoing of a mayor, right? If they are not on board with those changes, they could fuck you. They could easily make your life hell. Anyway, and I do think, I think this is, if he does win, this is an area that he will need a lot of support. Again, because as Caban said, the data is there. This is what, public safety units and mental health units are the things that do help people when there is, a crisis or someone having an episode or whatnot, or some danger. Before we talk about Hochul, I don't want to make it too dry. I did just want to play this because this was from The Daily Show last night. And I found this answer to be so perfectly encapsulating of why Zohran Mamdani is different and why he is such a breath of fresh air. He's talking about the burden of trying to please people once elected.
It's often framed as a burden or as an obligation.
Right.
But frankly, I think it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to actually show that this whole campaign where we've talked about freezing the rent, making buses faster, free delivering universal childcare, these are not just slogans.
Right.
These are commitments. And when we deliver them here in New York City, it will be also the delivery of a politics that can actually aspire for more than what you're living through.
So I love that, that you're always asked to, be okay with having a little. Just deal with the little and protect the little that you have. Protect the, the Medicaid, protect the Medicare, but just a little bit. Don't ask for more. Don't ask for Medicare to cover a hearing. How dare, you know what I mean? Oh God, you know what I mean? One of the things that we will all suffer through is hearing loss. Like these kinds of things. He's like, no, we can actually, and it feels much more offensive. And this is what Democrats have been missing out on, is like, stop fighting over crumbs and telling your base to be satisfied over it. We can actually go for more. And I think that is what, in addition to many things, but actually really that is what is so captivating about his campaign and his, him being mayor.
Yeah. And to just, I also think, his main platform, which you listed earlier, which is making buses fast and free, freezing the rent, and providing universal free childcare for every New Yorker. I mean, these are not some sort of like imaginary policy goals, or they're not so far-fetched. And they also don't require, the help of the federal government, like, say, taxing billionaires might, right? Bill de Blasio achieved a rent freeze for several years in New York City. Mamdani himself secured a free bus pilot in the state legislature. There's data that he's using to show that it's a good idea. It reduces assaults on bus drivers, and it improves quality of life for New Yorkers. And yeah, I mean, the thing that Bill de Blasio ran on, his first term was universal pre-K. And that was that was like the most successful thing he was able to accomplish. So again, like, there's a blueprint here. He's just cobbling together these policy ideas for what is ultimately an extremely achievable agenda, one that is very hard for New Yorkers to disagree with. Like, who would fight anyone's ability to have those things? And yeah, it's just the basic dignity of it all, right? Like,
what do you think the lesson from de Blasio is for Zohran?
That's a good question. I think, we were talking about Tish earlier. Bill de Blasio appointed Bill Bratton as his police commissioner in a very similar sort of chill out billionaires. I got Bill Bratton on my side. That didn't work the way he wanted it to a year or so in, when the cops were turning their backs on him for making comments about how he had to have a talk with his black son about the police. I mean, just, ridiculous stuff happened. So, like, again, that's a cautionary tale. But I also think, the biggest lesson is, like, ask for the moon and negotiate that way. Ask for more, because you might not get everything that you want, but you'll get a lot more than if your demands were much more modest. And I think you see Kathy Hochul, Andrew Cuomo was vehemently opposed to how Bill de Blasio wanted to pay for universal pre-K. They eventually landed on some solution that Cuomo took credit for later on. But you see Kathy Hochul, with Mamdani at a rally on Sunday night. She's learning the lesson of that dynamic and saying, why would I fight this politically? This is nuts. People want this. It makes sense.
But isn't there a self-interested, piece there? Because so let's talk about Hochul, because she is one of the only Democrats in power that has come out and endorsed Mamdani, months ago. And she was at the rally on Sunday night. She was drowned out by chants of tax the rich, which I guess she thought they were saying, let's go Bills, which makes no sense. And I'm sure she's lying.
They were saying boo earns. They weren't booing you. That literally happened in real life. They pretended not to hear what was actually being screamed at her.
Yeah. And like, Paige, the producer, was there, was like, it was awkward as hell. Like, she couldn't really finish, her speech. And isn't this just a lesson in how the intolerant left just doesn't accept the Democratic nomination? No, but like, why Hochul? What's in it for her?
So I think she was pretty brave to show up to that, especially because the stage had had freeze the rent on it. It had make buses fast and free. She's standing in front of those signs. She's basically wedding herself to this agenda by even being there. And then, she comes out, she faces some chants and some heckles. But I think her calculus is, okay, I'm insulating myself from a primary run next year from a more left-leaning opponent by being, teaming up with Mamdani, assuming he wins. And she's also probably betting that Trump continues to be unpopular, becomes more unpopular, so that, her right flank, at least Stefanik or whoever chooses to run against Kathy Hochul next year, we're not going to be swinging right like we were perhaps in 2024. So no, there's obviously an element of self-interest here with why she's backing Zohran Mamdani right now, but she still deserves.
She's still doing it.
She's still doing it.
Yeah. And she's reading it, even if it is for personal benefit. It's like, yeah, because there's energy here. You've got 90,000 volunteers. Like, you cannot turn your nose at this. And yet, I think someone tweeted like, man, those, like those Mamdani endorsements against Jeffrey's opponents are going to hit so hard. Like the hope that, and Jeffrey's like very begrudgingly endorsed Zohran, like whatever, a day ago, 2 ago. And like, Schumer hasn't, but you're like, yeah, man, Zohran will not throw down with you. His endorsement will matter. It's not that this goes away. He's still going to be relevant, obviously, as mayor of New York, if, inshallah he is. And like, his endorsement is going to be really important in the Democratic Party. This is the most exciting thing that's happened to the Democratic Party since the election, since the massive loss of Kamala Harris.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is, that Jeffrey statement was like 2 pages of nothing, and then him being like, I endorse the Democratic ticket. It's like, okay, thanks. But they're basic, Jeffrey's to the same extent like Chuck Schumer, they're kind of betting on Mamdani failing, because the only world in which they look wise is a world in which Mamdani's campaign to do the things we just talked about utterly fails,
right?
Makes Democrats look foolish for believing in him, but also like fails to deliver the things that Democrats profess to care about, which is taking care of each other, making sure people can take care of their kids and that they can get to work or school or the doctor on time on a bus. Like, why would you, if you're a Democrat, why would you want those things to not happen? Even if you do think it's a little sort of, even if you think the agenda is ambitious, putting out a statement like that is basically rooting against it.
Yes,
I don't. You're saying this is not going to. You guys are on this bandwagon. You'll see. I will look smart in a year, and it's like, who does this serve? Who does this help?
They're donors, obviously, and rich New Yorkers who are apparently, according to reporting we did last week, are kind of all hot air on if they're going to move out of the city. I did want to ask you, apparently there's been a lot of early voting with boomers and Gen X, which a little scary to me. What do you think that means? There's also a lot of early voting in Manhattan.
Yes. Yes. So that was a good report from Gothamist earlier this week on the early voting sort of stats. I think, that is encouraging. If you're Andrew Cuomo, you're like, all right, these folks are turning out in ways that they did not during the Democratic primary, which is helpful. I think the Mamdani camp would say, sure, but like, you're not beating us that badly with 55-year-olds. Like, you're only beating us by a few percentage points. So it's not as if all those voters were Cuomo voters, right? Mm-hmm. You also saw a poll that came out that showed Cuomo down by 10 percentage points. There's another poll that came out today that shows Mamdani up by 15. So, and you talk to some pollsters and they'll say that, what the polls now are still failing to fully capture are younger voters, South Asian voters that pollsters haven't really cared about because they're modeling everything on the 2021 mayoral election, which was very different. I think everyone expected the race to get tighter as the election day draws closer. But at the same time, I would exercise caution before freaking out over a poll like that.
I mean, look, I think the campaign wants people out there. Mamdani wants people out there continuing to canvass and whatnot.
Exactly.
No foot off the gas here. 2025 turned out more than 5 times what it was during the 2021 general election for New York City mayor, and on the second day of early voting. And this was, back a few days ago, which is insane. Yesterday, actually. So I want to talk about this moment. Look, I did live in New York City on 9/11. I was there on 9/11, and I saw the ways, and we organized against the massive Islamophobic, anti-Arab racism. For me, the sound of a right winger will always be like a New Yorker telling you to love it or leave it or get a job or shut up. That is ingrained. Some fucking Wall Street bro, trying to hit on you, but also simultaneously tell you you're a commie. That's my soul, man. And I think largely Zohran has not led with empty identity politics. He has not said, as a Muslim man, he has not done that. He's never used as a Muslim really as like a qualifier. He's always led with his program and what he will do. And then just kind of in practice, I think, spoken to the Muslim community, gone out to the South Asian community, really made an effort to, learn and speak in a bunch of different languages that he doesn't already know. His identity politics around, race and religion have very much been in practice. That is until this week when you saw, I think, these insane attack ads, Cuomo going on a right-wing, radio show and laughing about, Zohran cheering a new 9/11, a political cartoon showing Mamdani as a plane crashing into the World Trade Center, Sliwa saying, what did Sliwa say? Some shit about him,
global jihad. Why
supporting
did you endorse global jihad?
What? It's the Intifada. Okay, it's very different. And he's also never said that. But there was this ad. I have to play some of it, but this ad was released by the Cuomo campaign and then I guess immediately deleted.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, well, why? And let's just watch a little bit of it. It's a bunch of, it is AI because of course.
If we have to,
it kind of slaps. I don't hate it.
Backer, the democratic socialists' ideas are common sense, such as
decriminalizing misdemeanors like shoplifting.
This is a black man in a keffiyeh with a mask on, stealing, I guess, meds from a drugstore.
Third-degree assault. Trespass.
That was a wife beater saying that he supports Mamdani on criminal justice reform. This is a guy about to break into a building saying he supports him on decriminalizing trespassing, which does he even think that?
Prostitution.
A pimp with trafficked women.
Drunk driving.
My favorite.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone's favorite. The real star of this ad.
This is the star. This AI queen. This is like a, whatever. I don't even know if she lives in, she does not live in New York City, but she lives definitely like Upper West Side, drinking a full bottle of whiskey in her while driving her car.
Yeah, champagne socialists, but make it brown liquor in the car. Yes.
Brown liquor in a bag? I mean, hell yeah, girl. With some psycho eyes.
Driving.
With plans to decriminalize all drugs, Mamdani will be a job creator for drug dealers.
Instead of helping us homeless get off the streets and into the mental health facilities we need, he wants to give us safe injection sites to do crack and let us sleep in subway carts.
These are actual policies Mamdani and the DSA want to implement on day one.
When a woman's being domestically abused, she finally won't have to deal with some pesky cop to arrest the abuser, but now a social worker to help, kumbaya the situation.
Oh boy, the kumbaya. Shots fired on all the social workers in New York who are my friends. And the funny idea that, yes, the police will be there to save you and always have been known to save people from domestic abusers, except when they themselves are the domestic abuser. Oops, that's a fun one. But like that, it's so insane. Okay, I started with Islamophobia and I want to end with it, but I did want to talk about DSA because they're really doing a lot of DSA dog whistling here.
Yes.
here was Mamdani's response to, these attacks on him as a Muslim man. And I just found this is just a short end of it. And I found this to be incredibly moving and very different from, I think, the kind of response to racist attacks that we've seen before.
Growing up in the shadow of 9/11, I have known what it means to live with an undercurrent of suspicion in this city. I will always remember the disdain that I faced, the way that my name could immediately become Muhammad, and how I could return to my city only to be asked in a double-mirrored room at the airport if I had any plan on attacking it. And since I was very young, I've also known that I was spared the worst of it. I was never pressured to be an informant, like a classmate of mine. I've never had the word terrorist spray painted on my garage, as one of my staff had to endure. My mosque has never been set on fire. To be Muslim in New York is to expect indignity. But indignity does not make us distinct. There are many New Yorkers who face it. It is the tolerance of that indignity that does.
Ooh, like that not only was so unflinching about the uniqueness of Islamophobia and how pervasive and permitted it is, but then saying like, we're not the only ones who face indignity as New Yorkers. It just like my skin, like I'm like chills, because it's very much like he's talking about exploited workers or all kinds of, racist, bigoted, people who experience bigotry or discrimination and whatnot. Like I thought that was so masterful. And not running from it. It's like, he doesn't do we are Americans just like you. And we're the good Muslims. In fact, his father, who I used to read back in the early 2000s, Mahmoud Mamdani, wrote a book called Good Muslim, Bad Muslim, basically about this, like being a good Muslim means throwing other Muslims under the bus and also being like not religious. You could never openly pray or say you do pray. You have to be the secular Muslim. You just have to be culturally Muslim. And he really is swinging so big against the haters and the racists. Give me your thoughts, Chris.
Yeah, and he looks so classy by comparison, because I think, what we've seen from that Cuomo video, obviously, which they blamed on a junior staffer who no longer works for the campaign. It's like Cuomo is like constitutionally incapable of taking responsibility for anything that his campaign does. I think it's just gutter racism what's happening here.
Yeah.
And, it's not surprising, but it is still shocking. And, it just makes the former governor and the people who support him look extremely small and unworthy of the office of the mayor. And, I think to like hearken this back to, Mario Cuomo, Andrew's father, there was, when he ran for mayor against Ed Koch in 1977, there were all these rumors that, he had posted signs up around the city that said, vote for Cuomo, not the homo, referring to Ed Koch. And that was like, exhibit A as a dirty trick in politics. And it's something that Ed Koch never forgave the Cuomos for. But, Mario Cuomo was asked by a reporter during that campaign, hey, we know there are some guys who work for you who are digging around Ed Koch's personal life and they're trying to smear him with it. What do you think about this? And according to the story, it was in the Village Voice, Mario Cuomo was genuinely taken aback and said he was disgusted and that he didn't want that as part of his campaign. Contrast that with how Andrew Cuomo is reacting here. He's calling Mamdani, he's saying that he's playing the victim. He's being evasive when he's asked point blank about like this racist imagery and this Islamophobic imagery. It's a very far cry from his own father, who at least will condemn it, in a public forum, whereas Andrew Cuomo doesn't have the spine or is so desperate for power that he refuses to do that. So I think, there are many things you could hit Mamdani on that don't involve, racism and Islamophobia. And they're doing some of that, but they're really leaning into this uglier shit. And
well, Riley Cool on YouTube said, I watched the Hell Gate interview and you held Zoran's feet to the fire. And so speaking of, yes, you can have a not adversarial, but a tough, good interview and get specific with him without resorting. I mean, they talk about taxing the rich, right? And how you going to pay for that? Which, I mean, he's like, just tax the rich. This was my favorite little crash out, because the show I titled The Crash Out Continues, and it really does. But Maria Danzilo, was she ran for like state senator of New York or something?
I don't even know.
I don't even know. This woman had like 5,000 followers on YouTube. On Twitter. Nobody knows who this person is, but she writes, every time I hear Mamdani's anti-Semitic base shouting, tax the rich, what I really think they're saying is tax the Jews. They're obsessed with bashing Israel and wealthy Jewish New Yorkers like Bill Ackman. What a victim. Connect the dots. Kathy Hochul is going along with it is repulsive, and having Jewish Bernie there for cover redefines the phrase useful idiot. The whole thing gives me the creeps. Just vote Andrew Cuomo tomorrow if you haven't done so already. Let's send the message that hate has no place in New York City. Hate against the rich. When I hear tax the rich, I hear tax the Jew. I'm just like, oh God.
Yeah, I think there's some anti-Semitism in that tweet criticizing Mamdani for anti-Semitism. Yeah, and it's just like, again, if you have no new policy ideas, if you're unable to articulate a vision for governing other than vote for me because the other guy's scary, and this is what you end up elevating, is just like the basest, worst voices in your corner. And that's the playbook with 7 days left from the Cuomo campaign.
It's pathetic. It's sad. And I will say, just on some like broad like identity politics excitement, as someone who did see the attacks on, Muslim New Yorkers, I think it means a lot that he is like, I think it's not primary, but it's great. Like, I'm so happy. It's just like the fact that these underrepresented communities and immigrant communities who've been in New York for so long, who have been told to basically keep their head down, don't participate in the political process, don't, and especially even keep your head down, as he mentioned, for fear of racist attacks, go along to get along, whatever. And it's like, don't ask for more. And he's directly speaking to them, the people who help New York actually run and do it, become and be what it is. It's deeply inspiring. So on so many levels, last thing, DSA, talk to me about DSA, because that AI ad was all about like, the DSA is doing this and that. What's been the DSA's role in this campaign? And what do you think it needs to be, I think, in the future if he is elected mayor?
So, I mean, they certainly knocked on doors for him. They had a formal endorsement process. He
himself is a member.
That's right. And of New York City DSA, different from national DSA. They're all the branches are different.
Yes, they are.
So, but I think they do deserve a good amount of credit for him winning the primary. I think what you've seen in recent days and weeks is DSA, New York City, putting out a communique to their members, basically stating, look, like, there will be plenty of time to criticize this guy in office and we will hold him accountable. But like, number one priority for our membership has to be making sure that he fulfills his promises so that he is not a failure on an international scale and doesn't make socialism look stupid or foolish. And so you're going to see
socialism. No, I'm kidding.
No, I mean, and so I think, there will be some, I think it's why you haven't seen many people publicly sort of challenge his support for Jessica Tisch or knock him on some other sort of modulating things he's done, because they're smart enough to know that, like, the important thing is have him win, put him in power, try and exercise that power for the greater good of everyone. And then we can sort of start to nitpick his appointments and,
I think
how he's executing his agenda.
Yeah, I think the real thing is, and I think shows like this, I'm like, we have to keep looking at the hit jobs, reporting on them, talking about, because the smears are not going to stop. They're only going to get stronger, right? They're going to call him a failure from day one if he goes, and sits at the wrong desk or I don't know what, right? Like so they will come for him. That's not to say we have to be able to do both things. And I say this more to like movement people or organizers, which is holding him accountable, but also kind of doing playing some defense against the ghouls who are going to come after him. I think his job is, I hope he gives Hell Gate interviews when he's mayor. Right. I hope, I can't say that he'll definitely come back on the Bitchuation Room, but maybe, that he also, goes and does, interviews with people who are maybe more to his left or who are going to talk to him about some of the issues, and check in on that progress. I hope that he, works with DSA. I hope he doesn't, sort of, as we've seen, not that it's not a corollary, but Obama cutting the movement underneath him. It's like, no, this is the movement that got you elected. Use it to wield power as well, because shit, man, if Obama had given the people a single payer option, people would have rode with him real hard, and instead that very much sailed. So
yeah, and I think at Hell Gate, look, we don't back any particular candidate. I will say that, and it's not about objectivity, it's about fairness, right? Sure. It's not about this voice from the middle of nowhere that doesn't have any values or principles. It's about having a set of values and principles that are, we think, universal and important as New Yorkers, and holding our elected officials to them. And we are going to cover Zohran Mamdani just as hard as we covered Eric Adams, and we look forward to doing that. And we look forward to calling bullshit when there's racist ads, being pushed by a campaign by the former governor. So that is our role in this ecosystem. We're happy to play it. We're lucky to play it. And this is definitely an extremely fraught, exciting, scary, however you want to put it, time in the city's history. But we're lucky that we can cover it and talk about it. I'm lucky I can go in the Bitchuation Room, and talk with you about it.
So happy to have you, Chris Robbins, editor and co-founder of Hell Gate. So where can people find that awesome interview? I have it actually up right here. The Hell Gate podcast, right?
It's on, the Hell Gate podcast. It's on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. It's on YouTube. You can watch the whole thing. It's 45 minutes. We look fabulous. And Hell Gate is hellgateny.com. We're worker owned, so you'll get to read some stories for free, but our subscriptions start at $6.99 a month, less if you buy an annual subscription. You're supporting worker owned media. You're supporting truly independent media. And
we need it so badly, and we especially need it, in places like New York. I mean, again, it's honest reporting. It's not just, I appreciate you clarifying, where your role is as journalists. But it's what we need. We have somewhere we trust. So everyone support Hell Gate, and thank you so much for being on.
Francesca, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I had a great time.
Anytime. We're going to have him back on. Obviously, got to check in. We're going to do, quarterly check-ins, how our boy is again, knock on wood, how he's faring out there. I wanted to read a couple comments. Jazz says, get out and vote. This election is tight. Don't let the boomers mess it up. Indeed. Now the Zen, thank you for your super chat. If God didn't love rich people, why did he give them all the money? I don't know if I will take your money, but that is, I think you are being facetious. This is a comedy show ostensibly, I guess. That's effectively what prosperity gospel says. If you're poor, it's because you deserved it, because Jesus likes bling. I think that's what it's about. Let's see. A couple of comments. Starshine Dragon Song 3045 on YouTube. Maynard voting for Platner here. He's worked hard to become a better man. He's on the right side. Look, I think, just like any politician, right? They are not our savior, but they are useful. And certainly, I think Sam made a very compelling case that in the case of Susan Collins, Platner is the he's the opposite of Susan Collins. And to get him in there and to really hold him accountable. Once a senator goes bad, it's like, how the fuck do you get them out? How do you get them out? Why can't we have recalls on senators? They're trying to recall Gavin Newsom. They got to make me support this dude every 2 years when all the Republicans in California are like, oh, I like Gavin Newsom. It's like, me too, honey. I hate him too. But I don't want, Larry Ellison as governor for right now. We got to cover the governor's race. We got to cover, our yelly friend, Katie Porter. Vetras Varna, what's up? Cliche, but no farms, no food. Yeah, no farm workers as well, no food. This is on top of, obviously, the farm crisis is on top of the farm worker crisis and ICE hunting down farm workers and people being afraid to leave their homes. Let's see. Steph over on Twitch, what's up, my Twitch people? Says those farmlands are going to be foreclosed and turned into AI data centers. Yeah, exactly, dude. Not even joking. That's probably what's going to happen. Moondragon saying Trump isn't in control. Who is in the ear of my perfect president? Your president sucks. I'm just waiting for Marge to fully make the complete the circle when JD Vance is, anointed next president and Trump's, brain has been preserved in a pickle jar. Then eventually Marjorie will be able to say, yeah, I disagree with Donald Trump. He's not a good president. His legacy is bad. Or, I think her angle is keep the Trump magic, but claim that he's now everything is Lord of the Rings with me. He's like the Mad King, right? And Denethor I think that's Denethor. And the worm guy is whispering in his ear, and that's, JD Vance and Scott Besson. He was driven to it. He's driven to it. It's like, no, he's getting rich too, girl. He's getting rich too. And no, he's not in control. Tiger Turban, thank you for the super chat. Nesh is awesome. Power Girl fighting Brainiac clones animated. I don't know what that means. But I did read it. I don't know why. And Mark Gogan said, Francesca greater than Anna. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Actually, because there are some people who, once Zohran is elected and tries to implement more public safety policies, will be railing against someone they actually were in favor for before. Vetras Varna, I know Mainers and culture up there. Platner is a perfect progressive fit there. You've got Lemon Mint Cat says, I'm Arab American, very much concerned about his pro-military service. He can be pro-Palestine without expressing remorse for Iraq Afghans. He's still pro-military. I think that's a really good point. But I haven't combed through all of the Reddit comments. But it seems like the military actually radicalized him. So I would not be shocked if he thought that he fought wars killing brown people on behalf of rich people. That is something that, again, I saw a lot and we see a lot in anti-war veteran spaces. And they also have to hold a ton of trauma and a ton of, a lot of it is, we have an economic draft in this country. It is not conscription. People go into the military for money, for a chance at college, on and on and on. So, but I hear you, let's see. And I feel like Rapidemics on Twitch bringing up a point I brought up. To be fair, Mills stood up to Trump about trans people in sports. Would Platner do that? Very interesting question. Look, I've tried to get Platner. I'm going to try hard to get Platner on this show, but I would like to actually ask him about that as well. Again, not the top 5, 6, 7, 10 issues. But Janet Mills had that moment. And that was, look, homie, I'm trying to not say motherfuckers, but people were scared of Trump for months. And then Janet Mills was like, I'm not scared of you. Nah, you're not going to rescind federal funding to my state because of trans athletes. Thank you. So at least she flexed on him, and that was nice. But yeah, I don't know enough about it, whether or not it can, she can win. John Winkler wants me to bring back the blonde wig. You got to stay tuned to my shorts over on YouTube and on social media. Vetras Varna, food literally rotting in the field and on the trees in Western New York right now. No one to harvest. Too scared. Exactly. You guys, I would do the fart song, and I'm just going to do it and remind you guys to become patrons. $10 or more gets you that shout out during the fart song, but we don't have any new patrons at $10 or more to get the shout out during the fart song. Usually I prep my old people who I always rely on. Okay, let's do it. Let's try to cue this up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I'm not going to be able to cue it up, but you know who you are. Thank you guys so much for being patrons anyway. Thank you for your support. Let's play it just a little bit. But just a reminder, support will happen $5 a month, $8 a month, $2 a month even. You can be members over on YouTube. You can be a member over on Twitch, like Looney Tunes 9000, who resubscribed 10 months, 22 months strong, left his best. Jager08 Larson gifted a 1 month tier 1 sub to Charmcast. Thank you so much. Also 5 more community sub. Jager is feeling him or themselves. I don't know why. I don't know why you're coded male. Resubscribed also themselves. Eric77 the Red. When I subbed 11 months ago, I did not think I would witness the acceleration into fascism. God, I thought we were going to stop it. Fascist Killa resubscribed as well. Wow, Franny and Sam, a real Halloween treat. Dude, I was going to give y'all a real Halloween treat because I have a very funny Charlie Kirk clip for you. But that's going to have to wait till Friday. I think we might do an impromptu stream on Friday. So stay tuned for that. We're going to talk about Trump's crackdown on activism and nonprofits. So I hope to have a special guest. And so stay tuned for that. But otherwise, you guys know what to do. You fight the power. You fuck the patriarchy. You free Palestine. You vote Zohran Mamdani. And you don't just bitch about it. You be about it. Thank you so much for your support and your love. I'll see you soon.